listening to us. It's definitely confusing.
Good morning. I hope there's somebody out there. Not we wasted all this time.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'll call the meeting to order because it is 10 o'clock. For those of you who didn't drive in, I will tell you the weather was extraordinarily pleasant. And it was a wonderful drive.
How about through the construction area? Was it really good there?
That actually wasn't that bad.
So I will call the meeting to order and ask Gabby if she will to establish a quorum.
Sure, I have everybody but Vic Drawdy. You're online. Let us know. Brian Hendricks. Present. And Pete, we know this.
He got a last minute conflict. He called me on the way in, so he's probably not going to join us at all.
We have 11 out of the 13.
So we do have a
And
quorum.
John Smith, Region 6, is he?
He's on.
Oh, he is on. Okay.
So we do have a quorum. So the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 20th and September 19th. Those minutes were sent to you electronically. And I would entertain a motion to either amend the minutes or approve the minutes. Move to approve.
So
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion on either set of those minutes? Hearing no discussion, I call the question, and as we have done in the past, if you object to the motion, please let me know. Otherwise, we will assume that you are okay with that motion. Hearing no objection, I declare that the minutes of both of those meetings have been approved unanimously. We are thinking that our meeting may run a little bit long, so we are deferring a couple of things unless you have specific questions. If you have specific questions from Liz about anything the Georgia Trauma Commission is doing or not doing, we will certainly answer those questions. She will, I won't. Okay, I think you were sent out the current information about the ABLS system that Tim Boone works with. If you have questions about that, please let us know.
remind me the cycle of open enrollment, so to speak, for
December through February? Is that
I
right?
was thinking it started January
I thought it was
1.
thinking January.
It's written down somewhere. I can tell
okay.
you
So is the plan, just since that's, I guess, is this our second year of doing it that way or first year?
Second year.
So Liz, are y'all just gonna send something out reminding people? Is that what y'all
I'm
thinking?
looking to see what the dates are, because I
Okay.
can't remember myself, but that's probably
I
a
thought it
very
was-
good
I
idea.
thought it was December 1 through
that.
February.
You may be
Yeah, for some
right.
reason I was thinking the same thing, but
Yeah.
I may be wrong. I couldn't find it.
And this is for swapping of whatever carrier.
Just the
is
one
on.
time if people need to move.
So,
But I remember it's a 3-month window.
Right.
should we have, Tim communicate with the services on that?
yeah.
Is that the better thing? Because he's probably got,
It wouldn't hurt to do it both ways.
okay,
Because we both, I know, I feel comfortable he has a good email listing,
yeah.
which y'all do too. And if they're not on either one of the list, then
You know what? We can probably post it on our website too. That might
Yeah.
help.
My only
People are
thought was
gonna
just to
go there
remind
access-
people since
I
it's,
think, yeah.
They're gonna
the
access the
change.
grant application.
it's
so-
not any different than,
Yeah.
grant application. Good point.
because Tim said it was working a lot better doing this.
Mhm.
I just thought it'd be good to remind people.
And he is the one that switches their carrier. Okay, so we'll work with him and get a blurb and put it on our
Thank you.
website, have him send it out, and then we will duplicate it just to cover all the bases. I can't remember if there's a lot of switching.
I think there has
I think it was a
been
fair amount last year because people were really going to,
Southern Links.
wasn't T-Mobile?
Mhm.
Anyway, Southern Link or T-Mobile or somebody.
Southern Link was really growing.
Yeah. So hearing no other comments, we will move on to the Jim's update. Kathy is, I don't know if Kim's online or who's going to do that.
Kim's supposed to be online.
Okay. Kim, are you here?
See her on here unless she's still. username.
We'll go over the educational stuff first. Most of the classes have been scheduled or in the process of being scheduled for everything that's there. Only thing that we're still having a little snafu with is the EVOC, train the trainer. We're still working with McNeil. They're still trying to get the combined EMS and fire together. Right now, they're only gonna approve us to teach it for EMS only, because they're saying that there's OSHA and NFPF stuff that they need to try to combine in with that program to make it a dual for, say, Henry County or the dual department. So we're still working with that. Other than that, we're moving forward, getting all the classes scheduled. I've got a few of the EMR ENT classes that are done, but of course, y'all know that takes a long time. So we've still probably got 45 to 50 classes still active on the books. We're working with Liz on the reporting system. Better get that done, sorry.
No, that's okay. We're just trying to make it easier for you to see, like, based on the template where you approve the courses for the year, they can just have their report be, we've added quarterly columns, and so she can just report out how many of each courses were done, because then when you go to reallocate money, you'll know where those things have happened.
We've been teaching classes through the summer. Awesome response on the trauma cadaver labs. The two that we had, Tiff County, Henry County, completely full with a few extra people that snuck in there. Coming up on Lawrence County in November, it's full. The one for October in Hall County has been full for 2 to 3 months now. So we're able to keep that going. We are able to work with the state office of EMS and the paramedic classes and the ENT classes, getting their students in to try to get the required checkoffs done. So we're managing to get that handled. That's good. We've got upcoming classes right now. We've got the conference, which is fixing to come up. Over 400 people are registered for the conference. Vendor hall is full, so we hope to see you there. So we've got that happening. Right behind that, we have Axioms of Leadership on next Sunday, a week from this Sunday happening. Right behind that is the Hall County Lab. Right behind that is Thomas County Extrication with Patient Care Focus. So we're right behind each other with classes. So if anybody's got any questions about that, just send me an email. I'll get it back to you real quick. Working on trying to keep all of those classes updated on the website if you want to look and see when things are happening. Again, the conference is coming up in Jekyll, over 400 registered. I want to see you there. It's going to be a good lineup. Got good things happening. We finished our hospital signage with Jim and we had over 100 responses for that. That was awesome. So we're able to help them out and get 100 responses on people from around the state giving input on what they felt was needed for their hospital signage in their areas. Other than that, anybody got any questions for us? Yes, sir.
So is Forsyth doing EVOC for fire again or no? I know one time they did it for everybody and then they quit just to do law enforcement.
I haven't seen them do anything for fire or EMS down there. You know, they built that brand new huge high-speed track for PD. And when I've gone to the fire academy down there, we can see them over there working, but I haven't seen anything for fire EMS down there. And it's sadly needed. We need to.
Oh, yeah, it's been that way for
Yeah.
years.
So right now we can teach the class if it's EMS only, like it's a priority. The class can still be taught for those departments, but if it's a combined department, McNeil is not recommending the class that we currently do.
Okay. And then one other question on the numbers for the cadaver labs.
Mhm.
I mean, there's not a test on it.
Mm-mm.
So you showed numbers of how many started the class and then there was less that finished. Is it they just didn't come back or?
It's how many registered. So we've got, this is how many registered.
Okay.
Because when it gets full, when it gets close to about 80's pushing it for each session. So
Right.
as you can tell, I pushed it on a couple of them, but it was no shows.
Okay.
So we do a 4-hour session in the morning, stop it, and then do a 4-hour session of the same thing in the afternoon. So we're able to get that many students through. And then normally we try to do the paramedic students in the afternoon. That way, if they want a little bit more oomph, our instructors hang over with them.
Thank
And that's kind of a positive thing that was not part of the initial planning is paramedic students can come in and get their intubations where it's getting more and more difficult for them to get into ORs to do intubations. That has been a very, very big plus.
How's the rollout of the BSA going?
The video looks great. We're gonna roll it out this coming weekend at the conference. Already working with the ad agency. That's fixing to start happening. We're gonna be hitting social medias. I'm not on social media, so the only thing I can take is Facebook. And I'm not on it. I stalk on Keith's. But all the social medias are gonna be hit. They're gonna see what else they can do about putting some on some billboards around some of the interstates and just get the message out. And then also, one that was not sponsored by the CMS subcommittee, but Jimson did, it's a caricature video of when do you call EMS? So we're trying to push that out there too, with a little bit of education on when folks need to call EMS.
So I will, I talked to Kim about it this week. There has been a little bit of a pickup because they're trying to figure out, when we were here last and Richard was trying to show us how they could go on the site to find them and how difficult that was. They're still trying to work through that to find a way for someone at the end of that video, if they're interested in taking an EMT class, how they can go to a site and find out what years to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of just picking what county you're in and then have whoever the listed provider is in that county and their contact information. That would seem to be a pretty simple fix.
What we thought about doing, because I know this from working at DeKalb County, that sometimes the contact email, like when I worked for DeKalb County, it would change and that person's email wouldn't get updated up there. So
Right.
maybe if we can work with Liz and them on who's getting the equipment grants and the emails that are getting sent there,
Right.
it's possible that Mary could do a hookup that, if you're interested in Morgan County, click here. And it would send an email to that person.
Yeah.
And we hope that that's a more accurate email list.
Yeah.
It's a thought. So
Yeah.
we're under.
Who's the contact for your answer?
Says if you look across the state at how many different service providers changed this year, and then consider that even if the service provider is the same person, the educator may, several years ago when we did the pilot online courses, one of those classes had 3 different instructors over the period of the course because one person got fired, one person quit, and the third person actually finished the class. So that's a moving target any way you look at it.
It's almost like we're trying to figure out if it would be better to send, oh gosh, don't say this, to me. And then.
Okay.
Don't say this,
Well,
to
you're
me,
still
and
listed as
then,
DeKalb County.
and then I could forward it, sir.
I said, you're still listed as DeKalb County.
That's very, very possible, honey. Garrett Smith became chief down here and, because Jeff Stone left and
Right.
Garrett was my chief at the camp. Ties are everywhere.
It'd be
So
wonderful
anyway,
if we had a volume problem with all the emails.
And
Yeah.
That would be a
love
wonderful
That'd be nice.
problem.
I would love it. I would love it. And to get the rollout done, we may have to do something like that. It may have to be to me and then I see who it is and maybe they click on a county and then I've got to, if I don't have somebody's email, I got enough friends in my email contact. I can go, hey, does anybody have a contact for Liberty County?
Right.
Something like that.
And I would think we can help with that too, if you need to. Just email whoever the regional contact is and say, hey, who's in Blackley County or whatever, if you don't have it.
Oh, I would definitely reach out and holler for help. I'm good for that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it region, when we have our region meetings, make
Right.
sure they're.
Make sure they were aware that it was going on.
One way or another, when it goes live, we're gonna try to get the right people to the right places. We need some help.
Any other questions there? Thank you, Kathy. EMS funding update, I think probably we can take the 2023 off. I think we're done with that, are we not? So, the 2024, do y'all have any questions about where we're at with any of that? I think all of that has been signed off on and approved, unless something comes up that we need to go back and reallocate because we got some shortfall someplace or some overages someplace else, and I'm not aware of any of that. Yeah. And when Katie smiles, I'm happy. So, old
We'll
business,
have to start working on 25 soon.
pretty quick,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. So y'all start thinking about next year, next fiscal year. EMS equipment grants. Yesterday was the last day they could apply for an exception. Did we have anybody apply?
We have one, that needs to be approved for a special equipment request. And that came from Toombs Montgomery EMS. And they're asking for a medical support unit trail worker. I did not see it in the already approved list, and they have more information as far as what it looks like, in the following pages.
What is it? I'm sorry.
A medical,
Trailer.
Oh, it's
Trailer.
okay.
8.5
disaster
by 16 trailer.
Gotcha.
the next one, I think there's pictures.
Their grant can't pay for that whole trailer.
No, they're saying to offset the cost.
Gotcha.
I think the trailer was 68,000.
58.
I'm not sure if they put the cost.
It did in the very first slide. Maybe the second. There it is, 58,430.
Hey, Courtney.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, this is Kim. I think Kathy handled everything. I just didn't want to let y'all know that I was on the line. I got held up this morning at the funeral home, but I wanted to let you know I was here if you had needed anything.
I think she did a great job, Kim.
Always. I never have to worry about it.
Thank you.
So what do you want a motion for that?
Yeah.
I think
Do
we
without
approved those at some point in the past. Somebody requested one, so.
My suggestion was what you usually do is you approve it and then you approve it if you want to add it to the list. But because some of these things come up that don't get added to the list, we probably need to add a footnote to the list to say, to put the piece of equipment on and say we're quite case by case, just so we know we've done it before, so we can keep track of the one-offs.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a second. Discussion.
Okay, I think this will be one of those ones we look at each time, because this one's fairly sophisticated. Some of them could be less sophisticated, I'll just put it that way.
Landscape trailer.
I was gonna say U-Haul, but I wasn't fair to U-Haul, so.
So we'll mark it, we'll put it on the list with an asterisk that says.
We just had asked you to amend the motion to say we approve this specific trailer.
Mm-hmm.
That do
This
it?
application. Yes.
Just because all of our memories are getting a little faded. I just want to
Why are
put
you looking at
it.
me?
We're all getting a little long in the tooth, as they say in the horse world. But I'd like to add it to note that, because when these things come up and we go, oh God, does this fit in any of these categories? But at least we'll see it on there and we'll say, yes, that must come forward because it's a case by case only. Does that make sense? It
So my
helps us
motion, my
anyway.
motion is to approve this specific request for this first aid trailer. How's that work?
And not add it to the list for
Correct.
subsequent approvals. It'll be case by case.
I don't know, I can't call who seconded the motion. Are you still good with the motion?
They spoke very quickly. I was just gonna look at Zoom afterwards to see who is, but if they can state their name online who seconded the motion.
Who online seconded the motion?
I did, Courtney.
Wait,
Thank you, Dwayne. You're okay with the amendment? Did you understand the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Again, The way I'm gonna handle this is if you disagree with the motion and would vote against it, please let us know. I hear no disagreement, so I'm going to declare that the motion passes unanimously.
Berkshire Hathaway Company, that's expensive trade.
Probably got pretty deals on it too.
Are you done with the equipment grants, or can I ask a question?
You can ask a question. As far as I know, we're done with it because that was the only one that was requested.
So would you consider appointing a group? And I always have to be careful when I bring this up, because somehow I get appointed in the group, but should we look at the equipment list to make sure it's the right fit? Because right now, my memory is, again, it's whatever's on the state equipment list as it changes, well, it doesn't change often, but it has changed. And then it's anything we've approved that has a blanket approval, basically. And I could probably list 5 or 6 things on there. I'm not sure I can remember any of them. I look at it every time y'all send it out, kind of refresh my mind.
I think it also includes the equipment
The
on the
consensus
pediatric.
statement list
Yeah.
includes,
Yeah, that's right. So
it didn't include the ambulance checkoff list until you mentioned it. Somehow that fell off, but we
Okay.
put it back in there for this time.
and it seems like it's been cobbled together over the years. That's probably not a fair comment. It's been added to over the years. Is it time for us, while we don't have a tremendous amount of pressure, to look at it between now and the first of the year? Or not the first of the year, but the end of the first quarter or something like that?
I don't mind. I mean, help me understand why.
Well, we'll say, that's kind of
Something specific to the kids.
toggled my mind. I do remember in the past, we did not allow anything that was on the state required list. Because
Yeah,
you had to
years ago.
have that to get your license in the first place, so why would we be adding that?
I very well remember those conversations because some of the services were saying, hey, because we didn't have enough money to buy the stuff. So
Then
that
how'd
the
you get
state
a
requires.
license?
Well, then you have to come back and a lot of stuff over the years, you have to replace it. So
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just replacing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, I agree, it's not that. I personally think the list is good. I mean, I see what
No, I
you're
do
saying.
too, I do too.
It's pretty comprehensive and it gives you a lot of avenues to use this money instead of pinning it down to, given that we are about trauma, but all that stuff kind of revolves in a sense to trauma care in the long run. So I think over the years, from what I've seen, is we've added stuff, like some of the electronic stuff, the computers, and we went and added iPads to that, changed that, people are using that, and that's part of the care is reporting. So I think that everybody should go to find something in there that they can benefit their service with the
So-
list and serve.
I want to ask y'all, are there issues that are confusing that we need to address?
I call you immediately when that
Well, I
happens,
stay-
or at the dinner table, or text Lee, or, no,
Yep.
most of it's pretty straightforward. Jeff, you brought up a great question, but we never got a submission on the cyano kits.
And I can't even, what was it?
Well, one of them was on the list, but the cyano kits were
The
something.
cyano
Yeah.
kit
Mhm. Yeah,
was mentioned in our group.
What's the cost of those now?
I have no idea.
I know they used to be expensive.
They
I
still
are they?
the only
I
thing
can
that
quote
I.
the price.
I mean, they
found-
$500 or $600 or more than that, or?
are at least that.
Okay.
On the consensus statement, there's just a broad thing, I sent you the
Mhm,
screenshot that
mhm.
says medications as per, like, whatever your entity's protocols are per BLS or ALS unit. So like, that could broadly reach to a lot of things, so. But most of the stuff is pretty straightforward.
Okay, just a question for Liz and her team. How hard would it be for this group just to get I have no clue what we're buying. How hard would it be for us to not approve, but just see the list? Is that something that,
Of what people.
or what people are
Yeah.
purchasing? Yeah.
Well, we talked about next year, maybe trying to do your form submission via like a link, like almost like a Survey Monkey link, so that we could collect that data. Because right now,
It would be,
it'd be manual, and some people, will be honest with you, fill that in handwriting and like take a picture and send it. And like you really gotta squint to like, you know, I mean, I can make out IO needles and things like that. We buy a lot of IO needles, we buy a lot of monitors, radios, cables, things of that nature. But I could probably give you just like a general overview of what we're buying. But I do agree that you guys need feedback on what's being purchased with the money, because as this goes on in time, and if you get more money, it would be nice to be directive about some of the stuff and just making sure that we're outfitting the intent of the money. And
You know, and it may be if we're buying that, and I know, you know, national, huge expense every year just on our needles. It might be even something that we could benefit on getting a reduced cost for everybody if we're buying in that kind of volume. Reach out to the provider or to the vendor.
They don't flex for anything.
No, I know.
Well, the thing that they tell us is, look, they haven't changed the price. Nope. And ever since they started, and that's a good thing, it ain't gone up, but they sure ain't gone down either, so.
I just know at one point in the past, we had talked about narrowing the list and trying to raise the bar. So, and I think it was entitled CO2 we were talking about at the time, that if every ALS unit didn't have entitled CO2, then they should use the money to try to get that. And if a service already had it, then they could use it for carte blanche or within the guidelines, basically. But just trying to continue to raise the bar.
Fluid warmers and that kind of stuff.
Right, right. Those were talked about and all that. I don't think what we're doing is bad. I just, if you ask me what we bought all the time, I couldn't rattle off what you just said.
yeah.
Don't know that I need to, but I don't have a clue. People are buying 4x4s or.
We do track, we
What?
try to make some attempt, and we're making it more robust. Katie's working on a document for the trauma centers, because everybody now just says call pay, because what we pay them doesn't. So it's like, okay, there's other things you need to do as a trauma center besides call pay, but you know, it is probably one of the biggest expenses right now. But I think for you guys to have a sight line into what is being purchased, would be helpful to just know.
Yeah, well, and this is outside of our purview, I think. But I've always wanted, and I've been around a long time, so I've talked with numerous EMS directors about this. Every year they come and inspect your ambulances. So they got Band-Aids and pillows. I got rid of one time, didn't have a pillow. But they leave there, they don't know that it got a $28,000 life back, 15, and it's old ventilator, and and what just came to head one year when we worked for GMO, that was when they had a bunch of 911 disaster money. They said, what does EMS need as far as being able in an event? What should we stockpile to help them have? And we didn't know, because I didn't. I mean, let's face it. We used a Zoll monitor versus a physio monitor versus a Philips monitor. They all use different paper. They all use different pads. What should we stock? And nobody really knew who was using what. At some point in time, it would be nice for us to know who uses what and where the capabilities are. There was a lot of issues going on during COVID about who had the capability to transport patients on ventilators. And we had ventilators on 4 out of 5 of our trucks, so we got a lot of calls. We help a whole lot, but we help some of them. So the hospital took 2 of our ventilators, put in their ICU, but that was not too. But again, that's something I think on a state level that should be working. But I don't know that we've got the horsepower to go into everybody's shop and do that. But again, every year, Gary comes and looks at all the ambulances in Emmanuel County. If he just has part of his check sheet, cardiac monitors, 1, 2, there's probably not more than 4 or 5 of them. I know 3 off the top of my head. It would be nice to know that. So, anyway.
Pretty soon we'll have that information from Nick about the location of the different services.
Why don't you tell them about that? Is that, I mean, that's part of DTC, but
It's actually part of Dr. Bolger requested that we do that
Yeah.
before she kind of gets involved. So we have somebody who is taking a look at where all of, and it's not going to be perfect, but it will get us like in the church and maybe to the pew, maybe not the seat, but to look at where 911 response vehicles are located and then mapped on top of the trauma centers to figure out who's got like a longer transport distance. And obviously that's not from the scene of the accident. It's just to get an idea of what distances look like. So that's hopefully going to be some pretty powerful data for you guys. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to maybe say those with the longest transport distances. Obviously you need a lot more support on the vehicle if you're going to be carrying somebody for a really long time. I don't know, but we should have that. Unfortunately, we were a little delayed in getting answers to his questions, so he should be updating the map. He's gonna, put the level of trauma center and also the pediatric centers and the burn centers, and then this is just kind of phase one of it. And he's also got all of the location of all the aircraft all over Georgia and in close proximity on our borders, because we have many aircraft bordering the state in Alabama, up in Tennessee, and then even cross over into South Carolina. So it should be ready within the next week now that he's got, all we need to do is confirm the addresses of the trauma centers. And I think you guys need to look at it to give us feedback, particularly from your regions, to make sure where he mapped the EMS locations, does that look correct to you? Or maybe you could, share that with the folks in your region and just make sure that it all looks good. And then we'll have a better idea of what that looks like.
And the interesting thing we started doing is I was trying to find where the EMS stations were. And they didn't have that. Gina popped up, said, "Oh, we got it," and they sent it to me. Well, no, they didn't have it. What they had was, they had some of the EMS stations, some of them not, but everybody that had a fire truck that had a Star Life on the side of it, they considered that an EMS station, and I didn't. So we went back and forth with that, and then Kelly helped us get actual, like Emmanuel County's got 2 stations. So I don't know how many bullets got now, like 3 or 4, 5. So we were trying to look at because on your license you put that. So they had that data and they got it that back to this guy. So I think we'll have good data, but I think this is point we'll take it as soon as we get the map to you. Your regions, go in and look at it. So yes, that's accurate. That's fine. So the Maine State Office of Rural Health has done a lot of work on ambulance deserts, as they're termed. And their term is, I think, 25 minutes. You're 25 minutes from an ambulance, maybe 35. I can't remember, but if you're in the ambulance desert. And my comment is, if you got an ambulance parked next to you and you're bleeding to death and they won't take you to the trauma center in Augusta, Savannah, Macon, wherever, then you're in an ambulance desert. So to me, that immediate transportation of time critical patients is huge. That's what I'm looking to try to get to. How long does that take? Okay, so that brings me back to where I was at. I'm next. No, Lee, you're next. You were looking at that.
We still have the application counts for the EMS equipment grant. This Gold Star request for
Okay.
the Cook County. They're asking to absorb Grady EMS counts in Cook County, since they are going to start operating the zone in October 25th, 2023.
So that brings a huge thing here. So they've got until the end of this month to apply.
They've already applied, actually. We are missing their affidavits for Cook County, but
So Gold Star
Gold Star has applied for Cook County, yes, correct.
has Grady applied?
No.
Okay. To me, that's going to be, that may necessitate a special meeting. a call meeting. Because here's the deal, if you, and let me see if I can call it up, if I still have it. Maybe not, but I can get it right quick. Because Kelly sent out something to us, Liz, and she have been going back and forth. So, I mean, there's several, Grady, I think, is pulling out of Baker County, Brooks County, Cook County, Decatur County, Mitchell County, and Seminole County. Am I saying that right? At Baldwin County and Hancock. From what I understand, Grady is pulling back to Fulton County. So Baldwin County, I think, don't know, but I think the county's taking that. Atrium has got that.
The county has, they're gonna have a contract. The
Okay.
county's the zone holder and the atrium will be the zone provider.
So
It's supposed to be November 1st, I think. Mhm. And then Hancock the county took it back.
Yeah.
So the county's the zone provider and the county is the
I know-
zone provider.
I know we had some definitive data from Hancock because I think they requested 2 ambulances, or at least that's what was in
They're
there.
staffing to, they started September 1, I think.
Right.
So Baker County, Brooks County, Decatur County, Seminole County, Kelly's just got that down to be determined. They don't know who's going to run their ambulance service. And here it says Baker County that Grady will be leaving 5/30/24, Brooks 6/30/24, Cook, and that's a done deal. Gold Star's got that, that's there. Decatur 6/30/24, Mitchell 1/1/24, and AmeriPro evidently has got that contract. We don't know how many. So gentlemen, I don't know who or if, I'll pick one at random here, Brooks County. According to what Kelly got here, Brooks County, Grady has told them they will be out of that zone by 6/30/24. The new provider to be determined. But we haven't gotten applications from any of those counties, or have we?
None other than the Gold Star for Cook County,
Okay,
but
because Gold
Grady
Star,
hasn't applied for any of them just yet.
So can I throw a rock in your peaceful pond there, Courtney?
well, in all honesty, this is the reason that we deferred the other
For
discussions.
the rocks in the pond.
So it would be the first time you ever threw a rock in my pond, Huey. Well,
Well,
please
so-
do.
So, and I think I mentioned this before when we talked about this. My understanding, and I could be wrong, when we do this grant every year, we're asking people to submit invoices on money they have already spent. Is that right?
Correct.
So this grant is realistically reimbursing
No,
the providers.
I don't look at it that way at all.
Well, but wait a minute, listen to me. We're telling people to submit invoices on money you've already spent. So
When you submit the application.
that's right. So it seems to me this money that we're allocating is going to the providers that has already spent the money, not people that are potentially coming in next week or next month or next year.
I look at it this way. They haven't gotten the grant at this point. Nobody's gotten the grant.
I understand, but the grant theoretically, if they do get it, it is a reimbursement grant because we're asking for invoices of money they have already spent.
After they got the grant.
Correct.
They haven't got the grant yet.
Well, you
So
you
this
can't get the
year-
grant unless you spend money.
I took the reimbursement language out of it.
Oh, okay.
Effective
Say that
when-
again, Liz, what'd you say?
I took the reimbursement language out of it because many applicants have us pay the vendor directly because we already have known vendors for many of these things in our system. And so in that instance, it really is not a reimbursement grant. So this work group, I mean, maybe it does need to expand. Or maybe we need to dedicate one of these meetings where we really need to distill down to what we want all of the pieces of this grant to be. Because in those cases, it's not always a reimbursement grant.
I understand
Yeah,
that,
I
but
never
I'm just
looked at
saying,
it.
that's the process, is submit invoices of monies
know.
you have already
I mean,
spent.
that's how I've interpreted it always. A
It
reimbursement.
was,
I gotta
but
spit-
it's not on this current grant. I took the reimbursement language off, because that's not how it works for many.
So,
So when you apply for the grant, you say, this is what I'm gonna buy.
That's not what you did in the past.
yeah,
It's not what we've
that's what we're
done.
doing
This is what I
year.
bought.
That may change today, but it
we
has not
give-
been
we-
that way
oh, oh.
yesterday.
They go through the process and say, hey, this is how many ambulances we got. All right. Right? Then we say, okay, this is how much money you got. They spend the money and then we reimburse it. All right. So my point is that if they bought this before this process started, then that, I've never considered us going back and supplanting what they've already purchased. That's the way I look at it. But I can see, I'm not trying to, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, this needs to be there when to buy equipment.
I agree, but I'm just saying, up until today, every time I've done my grant application, I have gone back for the last 12 months and looked at invoices for stuff that I purchased that qualified on the equipment grant.
Well, I didn't
And
know that. I'd have kicked you in the curb years ago.
I'm just saying, is that not how everybody's
No,
been
that's
doing
not
it?
how
No, that's not how-
I look at it as a
Just how much
special
money I go
opportunity to spend
spend
this
it, and I
month.
submit my
Yeah.
stuff now.
Same thing, we got $100, we go buy something for $100 now,
Right,
and then
Right.
submit it
Yeah.
next week is what we do, not 6 months
right,
earlier.
yeah.
And that's generally what most applications reflect, is they get a purchase order for something they want to buy. Usually it's much more than what they get granted, and then they buy it.
So therein lies a huge gap, because if we know Grady's gonna be gone,
I think that since
I
it's
know.
in October, I mean, do we know how many ambulances that Gold Star had before this move? Is that what it was? Was it
what,
16 and then they're adding them?
Kelly, you want to jump in on this?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm listening. If you have any questions for me, I can definitely try to answer them. I hadn't heard anything come up that I needed to jump in on. As for the last question in regards to Gold Star, we would have to find out how many vehicles, ambulances Gold Star is going to have in Cook County.
So they take over that zone in 2 weeks, more or less?
Yes.
Okay.
So would this be a terrible idea? Is the Grady transitions that are imminent, we allow the people that are designated, i.e. Atrium, Gold Star, I can't read the list from here.
That's the only two that I know. of.
okay.
It's got names.
Allow them,
AmeriPro.
AmeriPro, okay. Allow them to apply, and then the zones or the areas that Grady's leaving and is not applied for thus far, if I heard right, Liz, that we don't fund anything there till the next cycle?
For the people for the ones taking over.
Yeah, because we don't even know who they are until some of them June of next year or something like
Yeah.
that.
I understand the June of next year, but this one's this year.
No, I'm saying let those,
Yeah.
give them a grace
Yeah,
period.
And then the other ones.
Yeah, the
I
ones
agree.
that, because there was a big group of them after the first of the year, wasn't there?
Right,
On something I saw.
Several
So
of them.
those would be
and
excluded.
they'd be in next year.
Baker's.
Then next year they'd be
I
part
agree.
of it. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
why I agree.
Wasn't there a whole list somebody showed a minute ago that had like 6 counties or something?
Well, I'm
Or you
looking
read
at
them?
Sure, yeah, I'm looking
Okay,
at them.
Courtney's looking at them, okay.
So essentially, in Region 5, they got Baldwin and Hancock. Both of those I consider to be those,
Is that Kelly's
Baldwin
email
is-
you got up there, Courtney?
yeah, Baldwin is 11/4/24.
And Hancock's already been done.
Yeah, Hancock's done. So
In
Hancock.
Hancock, just so you know, Courtney, Hancock was representative of Hancock County when we submitted the verification numbers. not Hancock with Grady, it was Hancock with Hancock County
yeah.
EMS.
Yeah, I remember that on the spreadsheet. It was Hancock County. Okay. So those two are kind of a done deal, as far as I'm concerned. If you look down, and you get down a little bit further, then you got the Baker County issue, which they go out 5/30 of next year.
Okay, stop. So to me, what I'm saying on that one is that's next year. Grady's not applied this year, so they're just getting skipped, is what I'm saying. Does that
Okay.
make any sense?
Well, yeah, but I was gonna go through and give you all of them, and then you could talk about all of them at once, but whatever.
I'm not sure we can remember.
I can because I'm looking at them, but I apologize for that. But
So you got Baker 531, right?
Baker 5/30, Brooks 6/30, Cook is done. They go out this month.
Is that one of the ones that was up here? Was that Ameripro or somewhere?
That's Gold Star.
Okay, Gold Star.
That's what's up there now.
Okay.
And Decatur is 6/30, and Mitchell, they got evidently contract now with Ameripro that will start the first of the year.
Okay, that was one that was on the list, right?
Yeah, I think. And Seminole goes out
It's
5/5.
right behind Julie. Is
5/5.
that what you're
Okay.
looking at?
I think that's what Courtney's looking at.
That is it.
So my thought was anything that's being done this year or the one that's already announced, designated, that we allow them to apply in this cycle. And then
If we know somebody, we know a name.
right, Baker, Brook, Decatur, is there another one, Seminole? Okay, that are not designated, then they are just, Grady's not applied for it. So we just, unfortunately, there's nobody to give it to, so when we do this the next cycle, then they can apply, is what
And
I'm
they'll probably
thinking.
come back on the list when they do the list with the state. It'll be on that list and y'all have it.
Right,
Is that not
I mean,
part of
this
their
is-
128 count?
I would think it would be
No.
anyway.
no, because they were, if you look at last year's, they had all those counties listed.
And I think that this agency, they were sent a request in, so I mean, I think that this would be the one that we would need a motion on, is that right?
But we have got a spreadsheet from the state that says how many ambulances are in this zone. And we're not. And that's the spreadsheet that we have used to determine the funding amount of money.
Correct.
So we've got that money theoretically that's there. So that number with those counties in it determines that amount per ambulance. So you got the counties that we're looking at are probably some of the poorest counties in the state.
But who you gonna give it to? You just gonna wait till September, I mean, June?
We might, and I don't know if that's doable. That might run everybody crazy if we say, hey, y'all do it later in the year. I'm not necessarily against what you're saying, but what I am saying is if we do what you say, we're still going to have those dollars in the budget that nobody will have applied for.
But don't we have money, and I'm not trying to argue, but don't we have money every year that people don't apply
You
for?
do, we
And then we have to
reallocate that,
come back
yeah.
and do something again with
So
it?
I think probably we will have enough money left over where people don't spend it to later in the year, before the end of the fiscal year, fix this. I think,
I would strongly discourage that, though. I think we just.
and that's a
make-
good reason to do it right now.
Just make it one time a year, and I would put some limitations on it around, because the one thing we don't have is that, yeah, you could be leaving tomorrow and sign up for, and then somebody could also not notice that they're leaving the zone, so.
I would just think anything that doesn't happen before the deadline of submission after that it waits till the following year.
But you probably will want to consider putting some language in to say that you, what was the line? You and I came up with something that we thought might be useful to say that you have to remain in the zone. To be eligible for the money, you have to be in the zone for 90 days after the payment, after the payout of the grant. So that way, because we can still hold the money then, like if you haven't noticed yet, but then you apply for the grant or whatever, and then all of a sudden you notice, if we haven't paid you out, then you're not meeting the conditions of being in the zone for another 90 days. I don't know what you guys think of that, but that was just something that we came up with. And I hate that we're kind of splitting hairs here, but you kind of need to come up with
You gotta
this
draw a
language.
line
Yeah.
somewhere.
mhm. It just makes it cleaner, and then everybody knows what to expect every year. You know that every year this grant comes out at this time, you have to be the zone holder for this time. If you don't make it on, I would even say just to deal with a grant one time a year, if you wanted to do something where you brought in those people who maybe came on in between, we could work that out on the front end to say you got some sort of additional proration because you came in at an earlier time. So that would be cleaner than trying to keep rolling the grants.
So I'm good with the concept that was, to me, kind of like at the end of the grant period, which is the 31st of this month. Okay. Then that's, give some leeway. That's, I don't care as long as you put a date to it. But to me, if you're not the zone holder on the 31st of this month, then you're not the zone holder. If you're not the zone holder, how can you apply for the grant? Now, if the county is a zone holder, maybe they can apply for the grant, but based on whatever, hell, I don't know. This gets, you can get so far in the weeds with this stuff and drive you crazy.
That's why it's probably better for the work group to convene about some of these things and then bring back a recommendation to the group. And we can even mock up the draft changes and send it to a few people who aren't in the weeds like this and say, does this make sense to you? And does it sound fair? And get some feedback.
Well, I want to be as equitable as all, I mean, these counties are really in kind of a turmoil right now, trying to figure out what they're doing. And they've got 6, 7, 8 months to figure it out. I don't know that this amount of money for those counties is going to be a significant. I mean, you're talking about not chump change, but you're not talking about a bunch of money when you got 1, 2, or 3 ambulances. So I don't think that makes that huge of a difference. But I think the one that Hancock's a done deal. In all honesty, we gotta, if we just do what I just said, then Atrium won't get one promoted because they come on board 11/4, which is after the fact. So y'all tell me, because this kind of stuff, we kind of need to figure out sooner rather than later, because, and again, Atrium may not, it may be a moot point now because these folks may not apply for it, but obviously Gold Star has, and they will be on board at that time. October 31st, they will be the zone provider. Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, in Cook County. So they are not an issue. The other ones, Maripro will come on board 1/1, and Atrium will come on 11/4. Could be. Would be.
So does y'all's rule or guidance about being in the zone for 90 days, does that still apply? Is that
There's
current?
nothing right now. We were trying to figure out if it's important to you guys. There's a number of ways we can do this, and this is why I think it's probably good for us to talk through what some of your options are. I mean, you could say that you had to be the zone holder from August 31st to September 1st of the previous year, and you're due for it. You could say, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen over a prospective year, so that's hard to control. You probably can control 90 days because you have a requirement with the state, right, to say you're out within a certain time frame of leaving. So, I don't know that you could do it much more than that based on their requirement for reporting that they're leaving, or if you even care about that. But we kind of need to know from you guys what we can craft the language however you want, but
I think this year, 18 months, whatever, is a little more unusual. I think there's always some changing in providers, but I think this year is, and into next year is unique.
Every one of these is a situation with Brady as we.
Right.
and that's fair, is that you don't want to create a whole bunch of rules around a
Right.
situation that is a one-off and may not occur with much frequency in the future, so.
If we change my terminology a while ago to say those services who have been identified as a zone holder, and that identification happened by October 31st by the local government, then they would be eligible.
Do you mean holder or provider?
Provider.
Okay.
Okay. So in other words, that would take care of the atrium issue, and the only ones that would be the outliers are ones that's gonna be June and July next year, May, June, July. That makes
So
sense?
basically, everybody that's been identified thus far,
Yes,
the ones that short list, they would be eligible if they choose to apply.
and that's actually going to be the AmeriPro in Mitchell County, the Gold Star in Cook County, and the Navicent in Baldwin County. Because all three of those, the way I'm reading this, they have picked their provider that will take over after Grady leaves. And
I think that's fair. I know the fair comes in October, but it's October, what you always say, so.
and they happen to be in Swainsboro this week.
There you go.
Oh, hell, you missed.
There you
Tuesday.
go.
Tuesday night's all being that, all the rights. Jeez. Is that what we're talking about? Makes sense?
Say it again.
Essentially, these communities, counties, these zones where a new provider has been selected and identified that they would be eligible for the grant this year. She's not smiling.
I'm just trying to figure out, are they already included in the numbers?
I would assume so, but I don't know that.
Kelly, were they included in the number?
Hancock County was included in the numbers. When the list was submitted probably 2 months ago, we didn't have this information. So we would have to verify. I did give you there where Atrium verified they'll have 5 ambulances in that zone. We would have to check with Gold Star and AmeriPro.
So we got the spreadsheet. Katie, have you got that spreadsheet on your computer? What I'm
I'll
interested
stop share.
in is looking as if Atrium says they're gonna have 5 in Baldwin County. How many did Grady have? How many units that were assigned by that state spreadsheet?
There was 7.
7. So actually, there's 2 less. So that would financially wouldn't harm us. How many is AmeriPro? How many did AmeriPro ask for? And how many were currently in Cook County? Excuse Mitchell. Well, we don't know how many.
6
Okay.
in Mitchell.
So the Atrium and Gold Star in Cook County are the really, and AmeriPro in Mitchell County, only 3 we really need to be concerned about. So,
They were on the list.
so if we made a motion and said those folks who have been identified as folks who will be holding the zone, that we would let them apply.
Are we good? We don't need more money to do that? Okay. Okay, the boss said yes. The money. The
So-
bean counter.
Those of you who are not on your phone texting each other, I would encourage y'all to make a motion.
I motion Courtney Allen.
Okay, Alan. So
I'll
I'm gonna,
second.
okay, I got a second from Jeff. So the motion, I'm gonna restate it. If I say it wrong and y'all disagree with the way I say it, please let me know. That these counties that have identified where Grady is pulling out of the zone, the 3 that, because Hancock's not a player, they've already got it going on, but the 3 that the county governments have identified their zone provider in the future, they would be eligible to apply for the grant.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
So if the person that's currently doing it applies and they get the grant money, then in 6 months, the new provider can apply and get more
That's what
money.
I was going.
No, 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 no. No, no, no. The ones who are in the zone can apply. If they're pulling out and they're already, we know they're pulling out, then they're not gonna be eligible.
So if we already know they're pulling out, that's fine.
That's
we
what,
leave here
that was the
today,
motion.
And this afternoon, the
That was-
state gets notification that somebody's pulling out of XYZ county, and we've already granted them the money. And then whoever the replacement is gonna be after the first of the year, they can then reapply.
You bring up a good point.
I'm
But
just
I
trying to
don't-
make sure our language is clear.
I'm gonna be honest with you, in the damn EMS world, I don't think there is anything clear, okay? So no, I can't predict the future, and we could walk out of the room and somebody could call the state. Because I don't think, Kelly, you correct me if I'm wrong, y'all were gonna change the rules, say they gotta give you 90 days. I don't think that's happened, has it?
Correct. The rules haven't been promulgated yet. They haven't been put out for public comment, but that will
They
be
don't-
added to the rules.
Yeah, they could walk out today, so.
Well, so I don't want to get into stretching this thing out. I was just wondering if we could just have something that said, oh, my mind just left. That was quick. They say it happens quick.
My concern is, I don't know if Katie be you, but if I'm Grady and I currently own the zone and I'm not losing that zone to June of next year, I'm putting in for the zone. I mean, I'm putting in for that money. So do you have the capability? They're gonna put a lot of strain on you to go know what they're putting in for, and they've got this many ambulances, because Grady has total,
Well-
how many ambulances have we discussed? the other day? A
Let
bunch.
let me do this, because this was motion just as these three. The ones that we know who are taking over, and at the farthest out, that's the first of the year.
Oh, that's the one in January, it's not going to June.
So
Okay.
we're not
going to
talking,
June.
we're not talking about any of those
Yeah,
June
I
and
didn't
July.
ask.
So
That gave us heartburn from
Yeah.
the paperwork
I got you.
standpoint.
So that's where I got my mind back periodically, but, so what I was gonna say was, is maybe anybody, before the deadline application. After the application deadline, then that means nobody else can come forward for this cycle and ask for money. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said.
So once the deadline closes, while ago, and I think Liz answered that while ago, is that after the 31st, there's not gonna be any more, well, we got the zone out 6 months from now, we want that money. It's not.
They gotta wait till the
application
next
closes.
cycle.
They gotta wait till the next cycle.
That's
Yeah, I
where I
mean,
was going
but
with it
here's,
before I
here's,
lost it.
here's the deal. Once the zone is closed, is the application's closed, it's closed.
Closed, right.
I mean, the day after, if you want to apply, well, I'm tickled, you know,
Okay.
they got a trash can, I got a
Alright.
trash can, you shoot that.
I'm good with that.
So I'm gonna restate the motion because we had a lot of discussion. But the motion is for these three services, and those happen to be Atrium, which will take over 11/4, which is just a few days after the thing. Gold Star and Cook, which will take over before the end of it, which is 10/25. And Mitchell, which is the farthest one out, that's January 1. That those three agencies that have been identified as holding the zones at those dates would be the agencies eligible to apply.
The Atrium was 11/4/24, correct?
No,
It's this year, before Christmas.
You're right. it
Sorry,
is.
that was an error on my part.
It's a
It's
typo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Good catch.
Hey.
Good catch, Brian. Good catch.
Courtney,
Yes,
Courtney,
ma'am.
are
Yes,
you
ma'am.
still in the discussion phase?
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't want to throw a rock in it. I just want y'all to think about something as well. This is a fiscal year grant, not a calendar year grant, correct?
Correct.
The grant isn't, it's used with fiscal money, but the grant has its own application timeframes, which is what we're trying to drill down to for eligibility, if that makes sense.
It does. I just wanted to make sure y'all were accounting for, and not saying this would happen, but just the what ifs with is, the AmeriPro one. You know, on the physical year side, Grady's there for half the physical year, AmeriPro's there for the other half of the physical year. Just wanted to throw that in to make sure that didn't need to have any thought or take any account into that.
And AmeriPro is the Mitchell County.
Oh,
So if it's not, it's not. I just wanted to make sure that if that needed to be discussed or thought about.
You know, I don't see that as an issue, Kelly. I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, though. All right. Any other discussion? All against the motion, because I'm trying to, unless we do a roll call, it becomes very problematic. Anyone against this motion, please let it be known by saying no. So I have heard no dissenting votes. I would declare that the motion passes unanimously.
Since there was no no's.
Since there was no no's. Lee, did I, Gabby, Katie, we good? Thank you. Thank you. Y'all have to keep, y'all do what now?
Last thing on here is the meeting dates. That's like later on.
Yeah, I gotta get these 2 or 3.
Oh,
I gotta
we'll check
put
that out.
Oliver on the, I gotta put Oliver on the hot seat first. Oliver's
Courtney.
committee. Yes,
Scott Stevens from Region 1. Before we move on, let's talk about Walker and Dade for just a brief moment. I know the last meeting that motion was made and we decided for the zone ambulance providers.
well, Scott, that was the next thing on my agenda. 'cause
Okay,
Lee-
sorry.
Lee had chaired a group looking at that.
Okay,
So, but hold that thought till we hear his report.
all right.
I'm not sure we looked at that one specifically. What we looked at was trying to come up with a count. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, because we had some fun discussions about the world of Georgia, in Huey too. But what we were trying to do was to determine what a real count was for the ambulances. And that was precipitated by the discussion in here in previous years with some of the larger numbers from some of the services. And so what we came up with was essentially a question for this year that we would use as a jumping block for more discussion. But the question was for services to fill out, not how many ambulances they have, but how many ambulances they currently staff, how many ambulances they currently schedule at peak. And the concept was that if Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are equal days in volume for them, and they don't have static deployment, and they deploy 6 ambulances for 911 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and every other day of the week, they staff 5, that they would submit that they staff 6. And then we, either as a subcommittee or as a larger group, after we got those numbers, we would look at it and determine, do we need to add a factor to that number for spares, or, and you have to kind of do this math in your head or on a sheet of paper or Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want to do. There's a bucket of money, and whether we divide that bucket of money by a larger number or a smaller number, essentially the services are going to get about the same amount of money. And so what I mean by that is if you have 6 trucks and that's what your peak schedule is, and you submit that and $100 per truck, you're going to get $600. If we now say we're going to add a factor of 2 and you do the math, it still comes out about the same amount of money that they're going to get. They're just going to get less money per truck, but they're going to get about the same amount of money back. Now, there's some disparities in there, but generally speaking, that's the way it works. So we discussed that, Courtney. We didn't talk about, unless I blinked, we didn't talk about competitive grants. Did we talk about that at all? I don't remember that. So
That was my term is, and it's probably not the best term to use, but it deals with the services who have a primary 911 zone and then had general transport trucks all over the state.
Right,
So
right.
some of those are using I'm not saying they're using it, because that might not be correct, but the state numbers indicate how many ambulances that zone provider has.
Right. And I think this way, Liz, do you have that, or one of you ladies, do y'all have the question we asked this year?
It's on, I
Oh,
just put it up.
That's, I can't see that.
Yeah, sorry.
Where,
I'll have to get you some binoculars.
yeah, there you go. Number of peak demand staff, well, we put staff there, but we said scheduled. Number of peak demand staff, 911 response ambulance for the 911 zone. Peak demand, the peak number of ambulances that are scheduled and staffed on a consistent basis. Okay. So what we were not wanting to count, and again, you two jump in. What we didn't want to do is all of a sudden you have a festival, the fair for Courtney comes to town and you jump up 3 trucks. We're not talking about those 3 trucks. We're talking about the baseline that's there year round, basically was the idea. That concludes my report.
Any questions?
90 minutes, and that's what we came away with.
I thought we had a good discussion because we all learned something from it. I really did.
I think we're gonna head in a better direction with the verbiage.
I think it'll be real interesting for that group, if it's not too much for work for y'all and Courtney wants the group to stay together, is to look at what information we get back.
There you go.
So let's look at, and I think the whole committee, so whatever we are, needs to see it all, but maybe that group, if anybody wants to jump in with us or not, we dig at it and look at it. You know what I'm saying? Look at what was the numbers from the state, because the state gave us good numbers. Let's look and see what those numbers are compared to what the number of the services give back. Because I think that's where the interest is going to be, basically.
And that factor about your spare / reserves, I think Pete made a good point last time we met. Right now, that number may be 2, because it's so hard to get vehicles repaired or parts or whatever. But in future years, that may drop to 1.5 or 1 spare for, we don't, I don't know.
Right. It's interesting. I did a little spreadsheet one day when I was on a conference call, and I took what Liz said basically, and I took, you got this number, and then the factor is this number, and the bucket of money is this amount. And I was amazed how, and I put some squirrely numbers in there, but I was amazed how close it stayed with you got 6 divided by 100, or you got 9, how that all played out basically. So you made a very good point to that.
For the spares.
Yeah,
And
as
the
to whether we
spares,
include them or not.
It's
So.
just so hard because for organizations like Priority or wherever, where you cover multiple zones.
Right.
Your complement of spares, and we couldn't even agree on what a spare was. Is it a spare or a reserve vehicle? Or, there's so many, we almost need a definitions page now. Oh my God, this grant's gonna be 30 pages long. But that looks different. And then you look at Grady, who does all that event coverage. So the cleanest thing is to just assign the amount per the staffed peak demand, and that will give you essentially that number, and it won't rely on what a company proprietary model is for keeping reserves and spares.
Yeah, I'd like for y'all to stay together and to look at the numbers that come in, particularly those counties that, we've identified several that just look odd. It might be exactly right, but it just look odd, so.
All right.
But Scott, let's go back to your point about Walker County. So,
Can I have one more thing to that real quick?
sure.
I think this is where, and Liz, you interject, please. If a region, if a service doesn't fill out that number there, I think y'all ought to come to us, whoever the regional representative is, for us to go to that service and say, hey, we need that number. That can't just be blind, basically, because we have a relationship in theory with everybody in the region that we want to be able to explain it and what the purpose of it is.
Right.
Because I did it yesterday at the Region 5 meeting, and I got, I think, one question, and I'm sure there were others that had the same question, but people better understood it after I took a little bit further in depth what we were trying to do, basically. I'm sorry, that's all I was going to add.
Yeah. Scott, you want to bring that Walker County issue back on the table?
Yes, sir. So looking at Walker and Dade County, they both are unique situations and what they do and what they've got going on in their respective counties. And I know we made a decision last meeting about the zone provider and who would be including in this grant. But after that information got out, I've been contacted as the Region 1 representative for this committee that the 3 counties that this affects in Region 1 and here and there each individual uniqueness to their county and how that's working, I just I have reservations about what we decided and what we decided to do and how it affects these counties and what they're doing and trying to do the right thing for the patients and the calls that they're running. They're not keeping these ambulances for an old state rule that was previously brought up in our previous meeting. They're staffing this truck with individuals and running 911 calls with these ambulances that they have in those counties. And Jordan Pearson, the Region 1 director, he's online and he can explain a little bit further in detail of how they're doing that in Walker and Dade County, if that's what the group would like to hear.
So is it just, Scott, is it just Walker and Dade County that we're talking about?
It's Walker, Dade, and actually Bartow. I learned that Bartow has got 2 trucks that they're keeping staffed that are actually running 911 calls if needed in that particular zone, even though they've got a zone ambulance provider. And each one of those counties is a little bit different of how they're operating and using those trucks. But overall, all 3 of them are staffing those ambulances with people on a consistent basis, able to run 911 calls in those particular zones. And I know each region's different. I just don't want these 3 to get lumped into the whole big group throughout the state because everywhere operates different. We all know that. And after listening to them and talking to them as the representative for Region 1 on this group, it would be wrong of me to sit here and not bring it up and say anything and try to make the group understand what these 3 agencies are doing to better the care in their individual counties that really they don't have to do, but they're doing, and to miss out on this money. And I think now, after talking to them, I don't really think it's about the money. It's purely the principle, Courtney, of what we're doing, that they're trying to do the right thing, but I really don't feel the decision we made as a group is doing the right thing.
Jordan, you got anything to add before we pull it back into discussion here?
Hey, good morning. No, Scott was correct on what he was saying. I mean, I can answer any questions if you need me to.
I'm sorry.
No, Scott was correct on what he was saying. I can answer any questions if you have, specific questions about what's going on or anything like that.
So I know that I think Dade and Walker have an agreement with Chi Hospital. Am I pronouncing that right?
It's CHI.
So it's CHI, not Chi. Okay, all right.
It's not like chai latte. Sorry.
I don't know. I thought about being Italian group. But they have an agreement with CHI, who essentially is their service delivery provider.
That's correct. In Dade County, they also have a fleet of ambulances they're marked as Dade County ambulances. That they have volunteers on that they can call in volunteers. So if CHI is tied up on calls because they're up on Lookout Mountain, and there's not a hospital in that county, so it takes a good while to get up and down the mountain. They can call in volunteers to continue to provide services in the county. And Walker County is kind of in the same situation with one ambulance. CHI can use it to put their staff on if for some reason they have extra staff or they need another truck, but their firemen can also jump on that truck and run calls. And then Bartow's also the same way.
So who owns the ambulances?
Walker County Fire owns one, And then Dade County owns 5 of them. And then you got CHI with their vehicles.
So CHI owns their ambulances.
Yes, CHI owns their own ambulances, and then Dade County also keeps a fleet of ambulances available if needed. They just don't want to provide, they just not in a position to provide those services on that regular
So-
basis.
So I have a question. Do these vehicles have an assigned zone for being dispatched on 911 calls, or are they primarily a mutual aid capacity? If the main provider gets overwhelmed, then these units are utilized to support that provider.
They're utilized to support the provider. Walker and Dade, they're all kept at one central location. In Bartow, they're spread out at I believe 2 different fire departments on each end of the county.
I guess my question would be is, when they get the questionnaire that says peak staffed, scheduled, what would the answer be? I mean, are these folks, because one place you said they're volunteers, they call them back in. So that leads me to believe they're not staffed every day. And then I'm not sure what the model is in the other locations, but are they riding on the fire apparatus, and then the fire apparatus goes out of service and now they're riding on the ambulance? What's the model?
Walker County, or excuse me, Dade County is volunteer, so they're being called. They're being called in from home or wherever they're at. The other counties, I believe, they're coming off the fire trucks.
So Scott, I mean, we made the motion last meeting that would essentially preclude those agencies from getting money for those ambulances, the way I'm reading the motion. So if you want to change that, you can certainly make a motion and we will see how it goes.
Then I would like to make a motion that we exclude from the previous vote motion that we made, that would exclude Walker, Dade, and Bartow County from that we previously decided. Where that the ambulances that they're staffing can be included within the grant.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I'm just trying to wrap my hand around 159 counties in the state, and we're gonna make a motion to exclude 2 or 3, because that certainly opens the door that gets to be a real slippery slope for me. You see the point?
I do, and after I voted no when we did this, and I understand that, but after talking to these counties and understanding what they're doing and hearing them justify their of why they feel, like I said, I don't really get the impression that it's so much even the money as it is principle of, again, those individuals doing the right thing and putting these ambulances up and staffing them to run these trauma, run these medical, to run these calls that we're trying to support. Is that really what we're doing? I mean, is this going on anywhere else in the state to these unique individuals?
Yeah, all over the
Okay,
state.
okay. Well,
and in all honesty, and I'm not trying to.
No, be honest with me. That's what I want to hear.
So, I mean, I get beat up on a regular basis.
It's okay. I've been beat up before. I'm all right. I got big shoulders.
And I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to
It's
explain
okay.
my thought process. Richmond County is the last one that I remember. And the fire department's got several ambulances. In particular, before the zone was we're having difficulty meeting the zone obligations and requirements. And the fire department is asking us, why don't you give us money because we're running calls too? And that's that county and probably 20 other counties in the state where the fire services have ambulances within their departments at different levels of staffing and different capabilities. And the fire departments are saying, hey, you need to fund us too. Same thing with the EMR classes. have fire services who come to me, so why won't you give us money directly to fund an EMR class? And my comment has been that on that particular line of thought is that because I don't want two different agencies in the same county training folks to do the same thing with two different medical directors and them getting in arguments at the scene and who's in charge. And so at some point in time, I've had discussions with folks who run private ambulance companies in communities that do a lot of mutual aid work back up to the county 911 services. And they say, why won't you fund us? And at some point in time, we can't, at some point in time, we just got to say, hey, this is the way we're going to do it, because we can't, there's no way we can slice and dice every community. I mean, I just don't see us being able to do that. Does that make any sense at all?
It does. It makes sense. And I understand when I took this to these three and they found out about it, they had great reservations. Again, I'm their representative to this committee. I don't want to sit here and not bring forth their reservations to this committee.
That's exactly what you're there for.
And that's kind of where I'm at and why I bring it up and where we're at for the group to decide. At the end of the day, it's the group's decision. I know the group has already made a decision, but the individuals that it affected weren't aware of that previously. They come to me. So I put this out there. I respect the group's decision. I'll take whatever's decided back and stand behind that along with the group. But that's just kind of where I'm at with representing my region and the displeasure in the decision that was made previously by the group.
So I apologize. I probably should not have said what I said until I asked for a second, but I did want folks to know my concern about making rule based on a particular county. But Scott has a motion on the floor that would essentially exclude those three counties, Dade, Walker, and Bartow, I believe, from the decision we made at the last meeting. I would ask for a second.
Well, as we often do, we're having the discussion before the second.
That's my fault.
So I'm gonna second it because I have a few more questions if you're okay with that. So I'm gonna second it.
I don't have the authority to okay it or not.
Okay, I'm gonna second it.
Okay,
I'm gonna second it.
second.
So Scott, I know you don't know for sure, maybe you do. How would they answer the question on the equipment grant as we've laid out for future? How would they answer that? Because it sounds like there's three different models.
Yes, and I'll be honest, that's my issue with each one of these three. Each three operate in a different fashion. So I'll use Walker as an example. To my understanding, they keep that ambulance. It's available at any given point in time. They can put a paramedic and an EMT on that ambulance and run a call. So to me, in my mind, if I'm answering that question, if I'm them, then that truck is in service in peak hours to be able to run 911 call.
One other thing Gabby just told me is that, and we verified this in our records last year, Scott, for Walker, CHI applied for and was awarded the grants for Walker and Dade, yeah.
Walker
So-
County has given CHI permission to collect vehicle grant money for Walker County ambulance.
So
Yes, that is
has
correct.
Has that changed? Because then they would ultimately still get the whatever equipment, right? It's just.
I think that was their concern with what we voted on at the last meeting, that would change now because that would put those numbers in a different light after the way that language was made about having the 911 zone.
No, it
So
didn't
that's
change.
not going to change.
It didn't change the numbers, right? Because CHI would still get the fund per ambulance for both Walker and the Dade And so the Walker County ambulances and the CHI ambulances that they stand up, right? For Walker and for Dade.
Correct.
So does that make it?
Well, again, it goes to the question of how are they staffing it? I mean, having people available to get on it if it's needed, that's not staffing, that's just a volunteer. My big concern is, we all know when it comes to licensure, we're required to have mutual aid agreements.
No, we're not.
Oh, well, that is,
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
I just don't want to get into, just about everybody does utilize mutual aid at some point. And so we're opening a Pandora's box, basically to make any licensed service in Georgia eligible to request this grant money. Is that fair to say?
Is it fair to say that this would open Pandora's box? Now, I don't- I don't-
Any licensed provider in Georgia will be eligible for this money.
Well,
Because if we're doing it based on these guys are available to provide mutual aid, when the primary provider is overwhelmed or short-staffed for whatever reason, then that's a mutual aid. And if we're gonna allow a handful of them to qualify for these grants, then that means anybody providing mutual aid across the state will be eligible to apply for this grant.
I think the difference in this case, if I'm not mistaken, Scott, is the three agencies that are asking are actually the zone holders that.
Yes,
that
sir,
not
that is
correct?
correct. These three agencies are the zone holders.
And
They
they have.
contracted with others to be the providers.
Right, that's the difference that I see,
Yes.
versus what you're saying, you would. And Scott, my only hesitation, just looking at it globally and not looking at it, region 1 versus region 10 versus region 3, whatever, is we're trying to figure out how to get the vehicle count number more accurate. And did we come up with the best system? I don't know. I think we came up with a system we thought would work. So now I'm trying to decipher how that would work across the state now with this question being asked. And if people are going to say, oh, I'm just going to take people off of apparatus 1 and put them on apparatus 2, then how's that going to get manipulated across the state? Or services going to now say, oh, I'm going to take 2 supervisors and take them off the supervisor vehicle and put them on an ambulance. I don't know. It's just, anyway.
any other discussion on the motion?
So are we not funding Walker County CHI Memorial? Are we removing that one ambulance from them? Based on the vote?
Based, well, this vote would change that, but I don't think the original vote changed what you did last year.
CHI would, but because they are the zone provider, Walker would not.
Okay.
But,
so they
but
still need
CH,
that one.
but
Okay.
what we've done in the past is CHI applied for grant for the truck for Walker County, because that is part of the zone, and we've been okay with that. And I don't think Huey's motion last time changed that.
No,
That was the
how-
concern, is that motion changed that. So that's for them, for Walker and Dade, that is the legitimate question. Did that change how we've been previously?
I don't think, in my view of it, that didn't change what they've done in the past.
Okay,
But CHI would be the one submitting the application, and if they wanted to include that ambulance as part of their number, whatever that is, if we determine that, and I don't know how many trucks they run. If they run 4 trucks and we determine that you can have 1 spare for each truck, they would get a total of 8.
And then how many for
And then if
CHI
CHI
Walker?
wanted to give some of that money back to Walker County for their 1 truck, that would be between them, right?
Or if they wanted to buy equipment and put on that truck.
Or-
That's what,
They're listed on the count document separately. So the way
They
it
have 10 in for CHI Walker, so it would be 11 total coming to one with Walker County Fire.
And so if we allowed CHI to submit on behalf of them, they would be submitting for 11, which we have already told them. So if we don't want them to do that, because that's consistent with how we've done it. Now, maybe the work group can come up with something different if we don't want to do it that way. Does that cover the other two counties in question then too, or the other?
The day.
Yeah.
The day.
That truck would fall under their spare/reserve
Yeah,
numbers.
I think,
It's
I think,
basically what it would do.
I think
And
that
then
would,
CHI could give money back to the county for that truck or provide equipment for that truck, if that's how they want to do it.
so Scott, essentially what I'm getting out of the consensus of the group, if I'm wrong, was nothing that we did the last meeting changed what they did last year. So if CHI applies for funding for those ambulances, then it will be up to CHI to provide that equipment to the Walker County truck of what I guess they did last year. That
Okay.
seemed-
I'm perfectly fine with that. That's just not what my understanding is how that would work after what we decided, but that's okay. Maybe
Okay.
that's my confusion.
All right. So we still have a motion and a second on the floor, so it didn't die from our discussion. So the motion and second was to take those three counties, we may need to go back and talk about the Bartow issue separate, I don't know. But the motion was to essentially carve out Walker, Dade, and Bartow County from that agreement last meeting. I would ask anyone who opposes that, because I'm going to be consistent, anyone who opposes that motion, please let it be known by saying no.
No.
All right. With us, buddy?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm for it.
You're
I'm for his motion. I made a second to it.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
voting to cut those three counties out.
No, that's not what you said.
It is.
Yeah, to cut those three counties out to include them in the funding, yes. It's the way you just phrased it then. They will be included in the funding.
But the motion was to cut them out of the motion from last meeting. That was his motion, the one you seconded it.
So does that mean they get the money or they don't, the way he's phrasing it?
Yeah, I think we need to be a little clearer.
Because it's about as clear as mud, because the way I hear it is.
It's extraordinarily clear. It is extraordinary, the motion is extraordinarily clear. The motion was to make a precedent so that those three counties would not be held to the same standard as the rest of the state that we voted last time. That was what the motion was. That's what you seconded.
Hey, Scott, does your motion accomplish what you want still?
What we have determined is that there is no issue based on our discussion now.
So it sounds like to me, then I just need to withdraw my motion after hearing what we've decided in the discussion, and that would make this a much simpler process.
I think you're right, Scott.
You have unanimous head nodding on that one.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cause a ruckus with the whole group. So then let's withdraw that motion that I made after learning of what we have discussed. Is that the proper thing that I need to do?
The guy in England named Roberts, that he's just spinning in his grave.
Technically can't,
You
there
cannot,
is a time frame for changing, overturning a motion, and we've exceeded that.
No. There's a rescind and there's a recall, but this is a little bit different. The motion here has been made and seconded. It now doesn't belong to Scott anymore. It belongs to the body.
Okay.
It has to be voted up or it has to be voted down. I'm gonna speak the motion again. And then we're gonna vote. Is that fair? Isn't this fun? Are y'all having fun yet? So the motion would be to exclude those three counties from the motion that we made last meeting. So if you're in favor of excluding those three counties and setting that as a precedent, you would vote yes. Okay, so all in favor, say yes. All opposed, say no.
No.
I'm going to assume that the noes have it and declare that the motion fails. That was fun.
Wow.
I'm with Lee. I can't see through that mud.
Me either now.
But thank you for creating it for me. I had an education, so.
So, I think two other things that I've got, and then we go to new business, but, immediate transfer to higher level of care. There's two things that have gone, that several things we worked on. One, some of you might have been involved with a meeting that we had at Cordeal several months ago with ACCG and GHA and the EMS Association, State Office of EMS, Office of Rural Health, to look at what are the barriers from the county government hospital side to immediate transfer, either from a hospital or from the scene to a tertiary center for those life-threatening, time-sensitive emergencies. We had that meeting, we had some discussion, we got notes. We are waiting for the town hall meetings to finish, and those questions are being asked at the town hall meetings from the EMS world. So we're getting information back from them, those folks. At that point, we'll get that group back together to look at all of those things and try to figure out how do we go forward about changing or enhancing our ability to get critical trauma patients either from the scene in rural areas back to a tertiary center, immediate or direct, or if they're going from a small rural hospital, how do we get them out of that small rural hospital quickly? And some of those time barriers are not EMS. Some of those time barriers are getting approval from the receiving facility. Some of those time barriers are what goes on inside the hospital. So we're trying to figure all those things out. But the thing that has changed since the last meeting, we have got a 28 question, 20 question, I forget how many questions survey that is now in the hands of Chris Coggins at Mercer Innovation Center. He is taking that survey that we developed and putting it into an objective manner that we so that the questions are not leading, the questions that we get the answers from are equitable, and we can get usable data out of that questionnaire. That's going to go out to all the rural hospitals, whether they're designated trauma centers or not, whether critical access or not. So, and Nita Ham is going to help us with that. She knows these folks, she gives them money. So we think we will get a good return on that. So when all that gets done, we'll get back together and start looking at those issues.
So Courtney, when you say rural hospitals, I know it's being funded from rural hospital perspective, so that's probably the focus, right?
Yeah.
What does that exclude generally is like, is Dublin a rural hospital?
Yeah.
Okay, but Macon wouldn't be?
No.
Okay. All right.
The state office list, they designate.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking was Terry Cobb, I don't know if he's on the call, I don't see him, but Terry's brought up some unique challenges that he's having transferring patients. And then and this isn't just trauma, okay, this is, and it's not the highest acute patients, but it's the ones that are requiring to go from the local hospital to a larger hospital that they'll get, and their wall time at the receiving hospital is extremely long. And this is a hospital to hospital transfer that's been arranged, and yet he's pulling his ambulances already a significant amount of time for the travel time, but then they're getting stuck at the receiving hospital. So the hospitals in some way are not helping themselves with this challenge when you arrive. I'll just put it that way.
And we're getting across the state. It's not just Terry Cobb.
No, I know it's not, but he's the most recent one that I talked to about it. So,
and quite frankly,
Wall-time group assembled or something? Were you part of
but
that,
it's not,
Kelly?
it's not really working on that. Yeah. So,
Well, I don't know how a hospital can accept a patient if they don't have a bed for them.
we've had the GHA as part of that call, and so those are issues that we're trying to get in front of them. The interesting thing is this is a trauma initiative in time-sensitive care. Some of the hospital names that have popped up have been level 1 trauma centers that are holding people on the wall for extraordinary amounts of time. Is that the level 1 trauma patient? No, it's not. They take that in, take care of it. But the bottom line is that Terry Cobb's ambulance is on the wall at a hospital in Savannah. They can't run that trauma call. They can't make that trauma transfer. So it is all
As
interactive.
somebody illustriously commented a while back, this is another hospital issue that we have allowed to become an EMS issue. because we try to work with our hospitals and get these patients moved, but yet it ends up biting us in the rear.
I have had the conversation and I told the rural hospital group last year when I spoke to them at St. Simon's, I said, part of the problem is your people lie to us.
Yeah.
I said, that's part of the problem. And I mean, I said it just like that. If you lie to us and say this patient's critical and needs to go, and we get to the tertiary center and they say, well, it's gonna be an hour and a half and you can go up to room 726 and they're gonna do lab tests tomorrow, then don't expect us to believe you next time you call.
That's right.
So
Exactly
that's,
right.
all of those are pieces to the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't, and even with the hospital groups, I don't think they intentionally are doing this. But they're going to have to figure out. I think somebody told me the other day that county government said we give you 30 minutes and after that, we're gonna put our patients on your stretcher and we'll leave. Well, you got staff to take care of them or not. And many rural hospitals don't understand, and I don't know if tertiary hospitals do or not. When we get on their campus, that's their patient. Rural hospitals, if we're transferring that patient from Swainsboro to Augusta, it is a hospital in Emmanuel County's patient until they get on the campus of AU or wherever.
But you know, until the federal government takes some action, it's not gonna change.
And two, we all try to be partners with our hospitals. And, you know,
Right.
Florida solved that problem back in the middle of the pandemic. And miraculously, the wall times disappeared. But it took a large department who could care less what the hospital thought to solve the issue, but they solved it.
So how did they solve it?
They
Lounge chairs.
basically said, after this percentage of our fleet is tied up, we will call a code red or whatever name they gave it. And that meant every ambulance that was holding the wall would lay the patient on the bed, the chair, the floor, whatever, and they left. And there was a lot of complaining and griping for about a week. But after that week, there was no more problems.
And that may be something EMS needs to.
But none of us as providers, we don't want to do that to our local hospitals. Because we know,
Well, we don't want to do it to our patients.
yeah,
either.
we know that they're challenged like everybody else. But this took an entity that had no ties with any hospitals and they just said, we've got a job to do. You're keeping us from doing it and moving forward. This is how we're resolving it. And now that's your problem. You figure it out. And I don't know what they did, but they figured it out.
Well, and at the end of the day, we'll look at that too.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to come to the meeting, certainly can. I'll let y'all know where it's at. But we got to figure out how to get critical patients where we need to be.
No, I know. But
And we got to
the
figure
easy
out-
thing is just stay right there. We'll have you a bed shortly and shortly turns into an hour and 2 hours. And oh yeah, just a little bit longer turns into 4 hours.
Well, in all honesty, you know, they called it code red and back in the day, hospitals called it disaster code black.
Yeah.
And if they're not calling it a code black, then what's the issue? Because if they can't take care of patients, they'll be in a disaster. Anyway.
I think in a lot of areas, unfortunately, disaster happens every day.
Yep,
So it just becomes mundane and routine.
and this has been accepted for far too long. So the March Falls Initiative, we had our second draft, if you will, course in Swainsboro last month. It went well. I spent some time, we had a pre-test and post-test. Dr. Patterson did the lectures and we broke into sessions and they went through the practical skill sessions. We've evaluated the test, the pre-test, and found out there was a couple of questions on that that were confusing. So we're fixing that. I also think I have identified a little bit of disparity. We're teaching people to put a tourniquet 2 inches above the most proximal wound and not high and tight. And quite frankly, I'm so damn tired of high and tight, I could throw up. Because high and tight is a military term, and if you get hit by a grenade, I think high and tight is good. If you don't have 20 casualties, I think high and tight is not what we ought to be doing. So we're gonna go back and have some discussions with people who do the practical sessions and make sure that that they put the tourniquet on 2 inches proximal to the wound. It's about that. We do have another one, the 27th of this month at Archbald. That will be our final draft, and that there will still be a bunch of work to be done because we're working with the Mercer Innovation Center and putting the didactic portion online. And we will be integrating videos into the slide deck so that those folks come along and we're talking about EasyIO. There will be a thing that they will click on to do EasyIO. There'll also be a thing for SAM and BIG because we're not interested in providing content based on vendor. It's content based on what the machine or what the thing does. So hopefully first of the year, we will be able to roll that out. People will be able to go online and take the didactic portion, take the pre-test, post-test, and then come to the hospital or to wherever, but the hospitals, physicians, and EMS will be in the room. Question? Say that right? The meeting dates.
That was just that we're on the new rotation.
Yeah,
so
we're on a new
that's just
rotation, so-
informational for you. We don't need to vote.
Okay, the 50-hour DOT EMTR program, EMR program, essentially is if folks apply for the grant for an EMR course, they can utilize the 50-hour EMR curriculum that's on the web and get grant funding for that. They do not have to get approval for an EMTR class in the state to get that grant. So, demo of the EMS workforce dashboard. Kelly, you still with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. We do. Fine.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so this is the EMS workforce dashboard. And just to thank Liz for putting us in contact with GDAC, which is the Georgia Data Analytics Center, who we've worked with to put this dashboard together. This is a tool that can be used that you can use as on demand as you need it. It's kind of somewhat like the reports I've been providing to MSAC on a quarterly basis, but it does have a whole lot more detail to it. Once we get through with this and I can get back to the chat, I will put the links in the website. But this website, this data on here is from the 1st of September. We've worked with GDAC and we will update the send them the data to update the website on a quarterly basis. And it will be we'll send it to them the first week of the month that MSAC meets on. That way, when MSAC meets, it'll have updated data. But as well as you can go in here and look at this whenever you need it. Just to give you an overview over here to the left, as of the date we sent this data, this was our current license or actively licensed medic count. This tells you how many of our medics do not live in Georgia, population, and just a few other data points over here, like 25% of our licensees are female, 75% are male, and then 388 of our service providers with medics. But right here in the middle, this first graphic to the left, this is where our licensees live. So if you hover over a county, for example, this one is Gwinnett County. We have 1,159 medics who live in Gwinnett County. Over here on the right, this is where our medics are working. So this data comes from our licensees as they're getting licenses. This data comes from our agencies as they're rostering their medics. And then over here, you can see the breakdown as well. Couple of interactive features on here. Let's just say I wanted to look at a certain county. And I don't know if anybody wants to throw out a county, or I can click on Jones County. So if I click on Jones County, of the 87 medics that live in Jones County, this is where, of the ones we know that are rostered, this is where they're working. So 87 medics live in Jones County. If you add up all these numbers, 48, 56, 57, 58 of these 87 medics are rostered to an EMS agency. And this is where they're working. Now, one thing you will have to take into account in this one is for our agencies that have their base location in one region, but then they will have satellite locations or distributions across the state. This does not take into account for that. And I'll give you an example of that. Grady, who is based in Region 3, if somebody works for Grady in one of these counties down here, they're going to be representative in Region 3. So there are some limitations. To clear this out, you come back up here, apply, and you want to go back to it. So this is interactive, and you can look at it by region, or you can look at it by county of residence. So this is the first dashboard. On the demographics dashboard, this is where you can see our demographics of our licensee by age group and ethnicity. And then also you can see this is where our medics are working by age group. Down on this dashboard, you also have some toggle filter features here if you want to do any filtering and look at it a little bit deeper. And then this third one is license level. So you'll see a couple of different boxes here. This first one, this is medic count by agency type they work for. And then this is the number of licensees on that agency count. So this first one tells you unique medics. This second column tells you basically if medics having multiple jobs. So like on our air ambulance service only, 269 medics are rostered to an air ambulance only agency. There's a total of 278. So we can see that there are 9 medics who have more than one job. And then this is the levels. And then here it tells you the service type. Over here to the right, service region and primary license level. This is showing you the level of licensees working in those regions. And then down here at the bottom, primary license level, expiration calendar. I know some of you have heard me say before, this is our big renewal year. Usually that's our odd number year where the majority of our medics are expiring. I will tell you on this one, this was an error that we didn't catch in the data. This is one of our test profiles. We realized after we sent this in that this was an error. Instead of delaying the dashboard going live, we fixed that and it won't show up in the next iteration or next data upload. But here you can see expiration dates compared to license level. And then this last one right here on this dashboard, please take into account and make sure you watch for this. This data is from 2018 and forward. So what this means is from 2018 and forward, we've licensed 6,721 AMTs. Currently, 5,313 of them are still active. 1395 lapsed, failed to renew, and these lapsed these are retired, deceased, and maybe a couple others. This column, these people would not renew their license for whatever reason. And then the last dashboard on here has to do with agencies. And you can see these agencies are broke down by region in the state. Also right here, we can see that Region 1 has one air ambulance service, one service that is ground, MFR, and neonate, 16 that are ground only, 6 that are MFR and ground, and then 9 that are MFR only. And then you see in the a statewide overall, and then these are the names of the agencies within those regions. And then you have some filter availability up here as well. Couple other things just to show you. There is a reference button here that has some definitions in it. And then this also will link you to GDAC's website, and I'll show you that in a minute. This one will link you back to the EMS website. There is some ability to download some data here in a CSV file, but it's the same data you're seeing on some of these screens. And if you have that need. But also just to show you, we also have this linked on our state website. You can get to it from right here. You can go to our state website from right here. You can also go to the GDAC website right here. If you go straight to the GDAC website to get to this, you would click on View Health Dashboards. And then you, just to show you this, there's a couple of other dashboards, workforce dashboards they have on here too. Physician, PA, nursing, dentist. I think the last thing I'll say before I stop and let you ask me questions, Richard is working with GDAC to do an EMS education dashboard, which at the same token is where we hope to be able to work with GEMSA to be a landing page for the PSA they're doing. That one, they're still in the build phase of that, but the goal is if someone's watching that PSA and at the end, they're trying to find an educational program within their county or within their region, it'll take them to this dashboard. They can click on a county or a region to find who to contact if they're interested in EMS education as well. I think I'm gonna stop and see if there are questions, just so you know, right now I can't see the chat. Please tell me I didn't lose everybody.
I heard you, Kelly.
Okay, all right.
I did too, Kelly. That's some great work. That is really great work you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dipti and I have been working for several weeks, many months with GDAC to try to fine tune this. I think it's a start for you guys to have the ability when you need to look and see what's going on, whether something in your community or your area to try to get some information. I think there's the possibility we could add to it if we find other information that we have and that we want to put out there. Please go in and look at it, play with it, give us some feedback. And like I said, it will be updated on a quarterly basis. That information will be down here in the left-hand corner. Yes.
We're having some technical issues. You just came back on our speaker. Trying to, please hold.
Oh, wow. So you're talking about the ones in the room did not
It looks
hear
like
me?
they're back up. Yeah.
Oh, wow. What was the last thing you heard? Liz or Courtney, what was the last thing you heard from me? I don't think I lost audio with those online. I know, I've been vouching. It's great. But it's- yeah, I know, I see you. Can those of you online hear me?
Kelly, I'm online.
Yeah, I
I
can
heard you.
hear you.
Whereas,
But, no, safe travels home. We got about.
Yeah, Kelly, we heard your whole report online. We didn't, you didn't have a pause with us.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like. Did we get those back in the meeting room?
I think we are set. Maybe. Kelly, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
What was the last thing you heard from me?
It was a while ago, sorry.
The last thing I remember you talking about was Richard was working to develop a education.
It's gonna be
educators.
to add to that.
To add-
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, Richard can you hear me okay? Richard is working with GDAC to look at developing an EMS education dashboard that we will work with GIMSA as well for part of the PSA, that after someone watches the PSA announcement and they want to find more information about an EMS education program in their area, that it'll link them to the EMS education dashboard to either click on a county or a region to try, who can I go to find more information about EMS education near me.
Kelly, can you and Richard and I talk offline? Because we already have the GEMSA, the GIO is contracted with us, and they've already built an interactive housed on their website, linkable through our website, and could be through yours to map EMS education. And we need a couple committee members because it's like, just like this data set, it's a really powerful tool. So we have to refine what we're looking at. So I just don't want us to duplicate efforts.
Sure, yes.
Any questions of Kelly?
And I will.
Richard sent out a link. I don't know if that was, I guess that was on the chat. But we can go on anybody can go on the state EMS website and click on it and go from there, right?
Yes, we've got it linked to our website, as well as, you can get the GDAC from the dashboard as well, or the EMS website from the GDAC dashboard. So.
Okay, cool. Any questions of Kelly? Jim, I've got you down. Now, we talked a little bit about your project with the signs. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say that I appreciate what Kathy did to help with Survey Monkey, and the fact that we had over 100 hospitals respond. All kind of information about the need for arrows particularly. But anyhow, it's been a great project. GDOT is working hard.
Nothing right now.
I think we overloaded their wagon.
Well, thank you for that initiative. That's something Jim just took on himself. Did you want to discuss that other one, or you want to wait a while?
Well, I just thought it was an interesting piece of information to see 25,000 plus EMTs in Georgia. And the Grace Commission project, which is all about human trafficking, has a 30-something minute video that I wish that as the Trauma Commission, the EMS committee, would endorse as a effort to put 25,000 people out there with some awareness of human trafficking in Georgia, how big it is, how much of an issue it is. And somebody said, well, it may not be trauma, but my thinking was, if you're a victim, you certainly have been traumatized. And it's a worthwhile endorsement of the effort made by the governor's wife with Grace Commission. So I just present that as something that we can take up at another time, but I think we ought to support it.
Is that video online, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Would you send us the link?
Sure will. It's about 30 minutes. Very informative.
Okay. And
Thank
then- Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Anything else that needs to come before the group?
Liz, when do you think the group could look at some of the data from the equipment grant?
Well, the applications aren't due till the end of the month, so.
And the reason I'm asking is we're getting into the holidays, so. And our next meeting's in January. I just didn't know if we could, before we left today, could just look at our calendars and see when we might be able to get on the phone together, but I didn't want to push y'all in getting the information.
And
You think we could look end of November, 1st of December?
And you want the, like, answers to the questions and
Yeah,
then some of
yeah.
get a feel for what equipment
Right.
is being.
Is that-
Yeah, sure.
Suit y'all? They're on the group?
I'm good with
Or anybody that's not on the group too, if they want to be on the group? Because that's what you want us to do, right?
No.
I thought you wanted us to look at the information and make sure we were setting up for the next cycle.
For the next cycle.
I was thinking we were talking about the number of ambulances, not necessarily the equipment.
Well, that's
Well,
the
that was
question
a-
on there.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
We're gonna continue with the work so we can get set up early for next.
Yeah, my
Next
biggest
cycle.
thing was determine the number of ambulances that these services are claiming are 911 ambulances to make sure that's being adjudicated correctly.
right. So we'll have the number that they're saying is peak staffed, scheduled. And then we'll
that
have
takes
the-
some time to have the conversations.
Right, then
with
we'll
them
have the
to
number that was used this year. There's probably gonna be a difference between the two. And then we could have, because I mean, if we're meeting, I don't know what your timeline is, but if we're meeting in January again.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about something for the entire group, but yeah, I think that's fine. I appreciate that. And y'all, that way y'all be able to bring it back to the group in January. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you, sir. Yeah, that'd be great.
But I mean, there's no sense in us meeting until Liz and the team have a chance to.
Yeah.
Get that information
If we
in,
could set
basically.
something up for like mid-November. But I still do need a couple, at least 2 or 3 volunteers for the education piece, so.
I'll help you with the education.
Welcome to the party.
I mean, I'll help you if nobody else will, but there's 12 of us on here.
You already doing the other committee. I'll help you.
Perfect. Scott and Jeff. Excellent, thank you. This is really just reviewing what we've got assembled. And making sure it makes sense, and then we'll present that at the next meeting, okay?
Any other new business? Hearing none, I'd entertain very much so a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All against that motion can stay right here. All in favor of it can go wherever it is you want to eat. Thank you so much for your time.